Diana's heart raced as she sat behind the front desk of the small Texas clinic. The sterile smell of antiseptic lingered in the air, and the soft hum of fluorescent lights provided an almost eerie calm to the bustling room. But inside, Diana's mind was far from calm. Every day she found herself caught between her deep desire to help people and the harsh reality of a system that valued money over humanity, a place where lives are weighed not by the urgency of their condition, but by the size of their wallet. For Diana, this was her reality. The clinic, with its pale green walls and rigid policies, had one unbending rule. All treatments must be paid for up front. No exceptions. It didn't matter how dire the patient's condition was. If they couldn't pay, they couldn't receive care. To most, this was just another aspect of working in a system that prioritized profit. But for Diana, it was a constant source of inner turmoil. She had always known that healthcare in America was flawed, but witnessing it firsthand day after day was something else entirely. Diana grew up in this small town where everyone knew everyone. It was a place where you couldn't walk down the street without being greeted by a friendly face. But now, as a nurse, she was expected to treat people like numbers, to separate herself from the human element of care. The small town that once felt so familiar now felt cold, distant, and impersonal. Her heart ached each time a patient walked in, their eyes filled with pain, only to be told that they had to pay up front before any treatment could be administered. She knew that some of these people she had known her whole life, were struggling. How could she deny someone help when their situation was beyond their control? How could she look away when someone's life might depend on the very care the clinic was refusing to provide? But Diana was just one person, and the clinic's rules were set by those with far more power than her. She was powerless in this bureaucratic system, a cog in a wheel that crushed the very people she was supposed to help. She wanted to make a difference, to be the nurse who saved lives regardless of their bank balance. But each day she felt more like a bystander in a system she no longer believed in. And yet, despite it all, Diana remained determined. Her passion for healing had never wavered. No amount of red tape could strip away her innate desire to help. She refused to let the system break her spirit, even as it relentlessly pushed her toward a breaking point. But how much longer could she hold on? How long could she work in a system that seemed to care more about profits than people? Little did she know the moment of decision was approaching, the moment when everything would change, and she would be forced to choose between her compassion and the system that seemed to value money above all else. The sound of the clinic's door creaking open was barely audible, but it was enough to pull Diana's attention away from the paperwork she had been completing. A gust of wind swept through the door as the figure appeared, a man barely conscious, stumbling in, as though every step he took might be his last. His clothes were torn, his face smeared with dirt, and blood soaked through his shirt, turning the fabric a dark, sickly red. He could barely stand, and as his eyes met Diana's for a fleeting moment, they were wild, desperate, and filled with panic. And then just as quickly, he collapsed, crumpling into a chair near the reception desk. Diana's heart skipped a beat, the urgency of the situation hitting her like a punch to the gut. The receptionist. Gloria looked up, momentarily startled by the sight, her fingers frozen on the phone. Her initial surprise quickly turned to a stiff, almost mechanical response. "Sir, you need to pay up front for any treatment," she said, as if reciting a script she had repeated 1,000 times. The words felt hollow in the face of such desperation. But they were the rules. Diana could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This man needed help, and he needed it now. His shallow breathing, the blood staining the floor beneath him, and the glazed, feverish look in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He wasn't just injured. He was dying. And yet here was Gloria, more concerned with protocol than compassion. Diana didn't even pause. Her training kicked in, and without thinking she rushed to his side, ignoring the rules that had governed her work at the clinic. Diana helped the man to the back room, her heart pounding with the urgency of the moment. Gloria's muttered protest about the rules echoed in the background, but Diana didn't hear it. She couldn't. Every part of her being was focused on the man in front of her, on saving him, on doing what she had been trained to do, no matter the cost. The back room where Diana worked countless hours each week now felt colder than it had ever been, but it didn't matter. There was only the patient, and everything else faded into the background. Her fingers moved quickly and methodically as she assessed his condition. His leg was badly injured, deep gashes that had been left untreated for far too long. Blood continued to seep from the wound, and the signs of dehydration and fever were unmistakable. He was far from stable, and yet Diana knew that she couldn't waste another second. She cleaned the wound as best as she could, her focus sharp, despite the overwhelming sense of urgency. There was no time to waste. This man's life was in her hands, and she wasn't about to let him slip away. Each stitch she made, each breath she took felt like a step towards saving him, but she knew she was working against the clock. The reality of his condition weighed heavily on her mind. He had been walking for hours, maybe even days in this condition, and now he was barely hanging on. The clinic outside continued to run as if nothing was happening, with patients coming and going, oblivious to the life-or-death situation unfolding in the back room. No one checked on her. No one asked how the man was doing. The day carried on, and the relentless demands of the clinic's cold bureaucracy never stopped. Yet Diana stayed, her heart and hands tied to the man on the table. She worked not because it was part of her job, but because it was what her conscience demanded of her. Her shift had ended hours ago, but still she stayed by his side. She monitored his vitals, adjusted the fluids, and checked his breathing. With every passing hour, she fought to keep him stable. Diana felt the physical strain of the long hours in her body. Her hands were sore, her back ached, and her eyes struggled to stay open. But none of it mattered. This man needed her, and she wouldn't walk away from that. Not when he was so close to death. As the night wore on, the exhaustion threatened to overtake her. But in the stillness of the clinic, Diana couldn't help but question the system she was bound by. How could a place that claimed to care for people turn its back on them just because they couldn't pay? How could she, a nurse dedicated to helping others, find herself in a place where money was the deciding factor between life and death? She had seen it time and time again, patients who came in too late, unable to afford the care they needed, leaving worse off than when they arrived. But this man was different. He had stumbled in broken and desperate, and Diana hadn't hesitated for a second. She hadn't asked him for his name or his insurance details. She hadn't worried about payment or whether he could afford the treatment. All she saw was someone in need, someone who deserved a chance at life. And that's why she had stayed, because helping him was the right thing to do, even if the system said otherwise. As the hours stretched on, Diana could feel the man's condition improving, albeit slowly. His breathing became less labored, his color began to return, and the fever that had once racked his body seemed to subside. Slowly, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. He was going to survive. She had saved him. But as the night gave way to morning, the reality of what she had done began to sink in. She had broken the clinic's rules that she had always followed despite her internal struggles, and for what? To save a life. It seemed like such a small price to pay. Yet Diana knew that the consequences of her actions were inevitable. She had no idea how the clinic would react, but in that moment she didn't care. She had done what was right. She had saved a life, no matter the cost. The morning sunlight streamed through the clinic's windows, casting a warm glow over the otherwise sterile environment. But for Diana, the calmness of the morning couldn't mask the storm brewing inside her. She had just spent an exhausting night caring for the injured hiker, a man she had never met before, but whom she had helped with everything she had. She had ignored the clinic's rules, risking her job to save a life. It was a choice she had made without hesitation, driven by the simple belief that helping others was always the right thing to do. But as Diana sat at the reception desk, the weight of the previous night's events lingered in her chest. The hiker was stable, and she felt a sense of pride in knowing that she had done what she was trained to do, save a life. Yet as the clock ticked and the morning wore on, the harsh reality of the situation began to settle in. She had broken the clinic's strict policies, and she knew there would be consequences. By the time the clinic manager walked through the door, his expression cold and unreadable, Diana could already feel the heavy burden of her actions. He didn't greet her with the usual pleasantries. Instead, he simply stepped forward, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His eyes narrowed as he looked at her, and the tension in the air was palpable. "What happened last night?" Diana, the manager, asked, his voice sharp, cutting through the silence. Diana took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I helped a patient in need. I didn't turn him away because he couldn't pay. He was critically injured, He needed help immediately. The manager's gaze hardened. "You violated clinic policy." He said his words like a punch to her gut. "You know the rules. No one gets treated without paying up front, and yet you decided to ignore that. You put the clinic's reputation at risk." Diana felt her chest tighten as anger and frustration bubbled up inside her. She had done the right thing. She had helped someone when no one else would, when the clinic's policies had told her to turn her back. The man she had treated had been bleeding out, barely able to stay conscious, and she had chosen to prioritize his life over a set of rules that she had always known were unjust. Wasn't that the purpose of being a nurse, to help people? She fought to keep her emotions in check, but it was hard. "I couldn't turn him away," she said quietly. Her voice tinged with the mix of sadness and anger she felt inside. He needed help. The rules, they don't matter when someone's life is on the line. The manager's face remained impassive, as if her words didn't affect him at all. "The rules are there for a reason, Diana. They protect the clinic. We can't just give out free treatment to everyone who walks through that door. It's a business, not a charity." His tone was final, and it left no room for discussion. Diana's heart sank. She knew what was coming next. She had broken the most fundamental rule of the clinic, and now she was going to pay the price. The manager's voice grew colder as he spoke again. His decision already made. "You're fired, Diana. We can't have employees who disregard the rules like that. We need people who follow protocol, not people who think they can bend the rules when it suits them. I'm sorry, but this is non-negotiable." The words hit Diana like a slap in the face. She had known it was coming, but the sting of hearing them out loud was still overwhelming. She had worked so hard at this clinic, giving everything she had to help the people in her community, and now in a moment of selfless compassion, she had lost everything. Her job, her sense of security, and the place where she had spent so much of her time, all gone, because she had dared to do what she felt was right. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. She had saved a life, and for that, she was being punished. The anger and sadness swirled within her, a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Was this really what the world had come to? A system that valued money over human life? A system that would punish someone for showing compassion? Diana stood there, her body tense, her mind in a whirlwind. She had no words to argue with him, no words to make him see the truth. The reality was that she had broken the rules, and now she had to face the consequences. The pain in her chest deepened, but amidst it, there was also a flicker of something else, something she had to hold on to. The belief that she had done the right thing, that despite everything she had chosen, humanity over policy, compassion over bureaucracy. With a heavy heart, Diana gathered her things. There was no point in arguing. The decision had been made. The manager's cold dismissal left her with no room for debate. She turned to walk out of the clinic, feeling the weight of her actions and the harsh reality of the price she had paid. As she stepped out of the building and into the morning sunlight, she felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her. What now? What would she do next? But even in the face of all the loss and disappointment, Diana couldn't deny one thing. She had stayed true to herself. She had helped someone in need. She had chosen compassion, and that she knew was worth more than any paycheck, more than any job title, more than any policy. Her heart felt heavy, but it also felt light in a way she hadn't expected, because in the end, doing the right thing had to be enough. Diana sat on the porch of her small cottage, the quiet of the countryside surrounding her like a blanket. The events of the past day played over and over in her mind: the decision to help the injured hiker, the loss of her job, the anger and sadness she felt after being fired for doing the right thing. She had sacrificed her career to save a life. But now, as the sun dipped low in the sky, she felt uncertain about her future. Would the world ever truly reward selflessness? Or had she just thrown everything away for a fleeting moment of compassion? Her thoughts were interrupted by a strange vibration in the ground, something that felt almost like a distant rumble. Diana frowned, confused. She glanced around her quiet surroundings, searching for any sign of what was happening. The vibration grew louder, more intense, until she heard it, an unmistakable sound, the deep, powerful hum of helicopter blades slicing through the air. Her heart skipped a beat. Why would helicopters be flying over her remote little cottage? She rushed to her feet, looking up at the sky as the noise intensified. She could see two massive helicopters descending rapidly, their rotors stirring up dust and debris as they dipped lower, casting long shifting shadows across the fields around her home. Diana instinctively covered her face with her arm, to shield herself from the chaos, her breath catching in her throat. As the helicopters landed with a force that shook the ground beneath her feet, the powerful roar of the helicopters slowly died down, leaving behind a strange and deafening silence. Diana's mind raced. Was there an emergency? A high-profile visitor? A sense of confusion and awe gripped her as she tried to make sense of what was happening. Who could possibly be arriving in such a grand, unexpected manner in the middle of nowhere? And then the sound of boots crunching against gravel broke the silence, and Diana turned her gaze drawn to the figures emerging from the helicopters. There were several men, at least 5 or 6, dressed in dark suits. They moved with sharp precision, their faces serious, their expressions unreadable. Each of them seemed to carry an air of authority, their movements deliberate and controlled as they walked toward her cottage. Diana's pulse quickened. She had no idea who they were, but the very presence of these men felt different. There was something commanding about them, something that made her feel small and insignificant in comparison. But it wasn't until the last man stepped forward that her confusion turned to sheer disbelief. The man who had walked into the clinic just the day before the man she had saved was standing there, surrounded by the suited men. But he was no longer the ragged, blood-soaked hiker who had stumbled into her clinic in desperate need of help. He was impeccably dressed in a sharp suit, his once disheveled appearance now replaced with a clean, polished look. His hair was neatly styled, and his features were illuminated by the soft glow of the late afternoon sun. Diana's breath caught in her throat as she stared at him. The realization hit her like a wave, and for a moment she was paralyzed with shock. The man she had saved was not some random hiker. He wasn't just a stranger. He was Louis Marchand, someone whose name was synonymous with wealth, power, and influence. He was someone who commanded attention, someone with resources that most people could only dream of. Her mind swirled with disbelief. How could she have not recognized him? Louis Marchand, this man, this influential figure, had been the one she saved, the one she had treated like any other patient without hesitation or expectation. And now here he was standing before her with a team of men in suits, 2 helicopters, and an air of authority that seemed to fill the entire space around her. Louis took a few steps toward Diana, his calm gaze locking with hers. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Diana stood frozen, trying to process the surreal nature of the situation. Her heart pounded in her chest, and 1,000 thoughts rushed through her mind, each more bewildering than the last. This couldn't be real. This wasn't the world she knew, the world where a nurse like her, a small-town girl with no wealth or status, could save someone like him and have no idea of the immense power he held. Finally, Louis broke the silence, his voice smooth and controlled. "Diana," he said, his tone almost gentle, but there was a quiet strength in it. "I owe you my life." The words hung in the air, thick with significance. Diana blinked, still struggling to grasp the enormity of the situation. Her voice felt stuck in her throat, unable to form the questions that burned inside her. "I don't understand." She stammered, her mind racing. You're Louis Marchand." Louis nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Yes, I am," he said calmly. "And I'm the man you saved yesterday." Diana's head spun with the weight of the revelation. The man she had helped, a man who had appeared to be just a random unfortunate soul, was in fact a wealthy and powerful individual. He was someone who could have any luxury at his disposal, yet she had treated him like any other patient without knowledge of who he was or what he represented. She had simply done what she knew was right, helped a fellow human being in need. "I never knew who you were," Diana said softly, still trying to absorb the shock. "I just helped you because you needed it. That's all." Louis nodded again, his expression unwavering. "And that's exactly why I'm here," he said, "to thank you, but also to offer you something in return." Diana felt her stomach tighten at the thought. What could someone like Louis Marchand possibly offer her, a simple nurse from a small town? She had nothing to give him but her time and care. But as she looked at him standing there with his team of suited men helicopters and an air of power that seemed to surround him, she couldn't help but feel both awe and trepidation. Louis continued, his voice more sincere now. I was on a retreat in the mountains when I got into an accident. I had been hiking alone, trying to clear my head when I stumbled and fell. It was a long walk to your clinic, but I didn't have the strength to make it any further. When I arrived, I was in no condition to ask for help, but you didn't hesitate. You saved me when no one else would have. Diana's mind reeled. But she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. Louis paused for a moment, his gaze softening as he looked at her. I've spent the past few days trying to track you down. I needed to find the person who saved my life. And now that I have, I want to offer you something. Something that will allow you to help others the way you helped me. Diana blinked, trying to process the weight of his words. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Louis stepped closer, his presence commanding but gentle. Let me help you build a clinic. Together we can create a place where people can receive the care they deserve. No bureaucracy, no payment up front. A place where you can lead and heal without anything holding you back. Diana stood frozen, her heart racing with a mixture of disbelief and awe. This wasn't just a thank you, it was a life-changing opportunity. Louis Marchand, the man she had saved, was offering her the chance to build something incredible, a clinic where people could receive care without the constraints of money. It was a dream she had held for so long, but never imagined she would be offered the resources to make it a reality. For a moment, all Diana could do was stare at him, her mind struggling to keep up with the magnitude of the offer. She had saved a life, and now that very life was offering her the chance to change the world. It was a moment that would define her future. As she processed his offer, her mind raced with questions and doubts. Could she really do this? Could she step into this new world of business, money, and logistics while still holding on to her core values of compassion and care? She had been a nurse her whole life, trained to heal with her hands, not her business acumen. The prospect of running an entire clinic, leading a team, managing finances, and overseeing operations felt overwhelming. She had never thought about the complexities of building a healthcare facility. Her focus had always been on the patients and the immediate care they needed. Louis seemed to sense her hesitation. His gaze softened, and he stepped closer, his presence calming despite the intensity of the situation. I know this is a big leap, Diana, he said, his voice warm but firm. But you've spent your whole life helping others, putting their needs above your own. Now I want to help you bring your vision to life. This is your chance to create a place where people can come and get the treatment they need without worrying about bills or insurance. A place where compassion is the foundation, not profits. Diana's chest tightened as she listened. The thought of building such a place had always felt like a distant dream, something she could only wish for, but never truly achieve. The healthcare system she had worked in had been broken from the start. Patients turned away because they couldn't afford care, decisions made based on finances rather than need. It was a system she had always known was flawed, but her hands had often been tied. Now here was someone offering her a way to fix it, to change everything. Her mind flashed back to the many patients she had seen over the years. Families who had come to the clinic too late because they couldn't pay, the elderly who were forced to choose between food and medicine, the children who suffered because their parents didn't have the means to get them the care they needed. Diana had watched all of this unfold, helpless to change anything. She had always dreamed of a better way, a way to help people without worrying about the cost. And now Louis was offering her that chance. But despite the excitement and the hope swirling inside her, Diana couldn't shake her doubts. I don't know, Louis, she said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I've spent my whole life as a nurse, not a businesswoman. I don't know how to run a clinic. I don't know how to manage all the logistics, the finances, or hire the right people. It's overwhelming. And what if I fail? What if I can't live up to your expectations? Louis nodded, understanding the weight of her concerns. He had likely seen the same doubts in others before, people who were overwhelmed by the scale of what he was offering. But he wasn't backing down. Diana, I'm not asking you to do this alone. You'll have a team to help you: architects, business strategists, medical professionals. My team will be there every step of the way. I've built companies before, but I've never built something like this. This is a clinic that will change lives, and I believe in you. You've always put others first. You're the heart and soul of what this clinic will be. I have no doubt you can do it. His words hung in the air, and Diana felt a stirring of hope deep within her. Could she really do this? Could she create the kind of clinic she had always dreamed of, where people could come for care without the fear of financial ruin? Where compassion would be the guiding principle, not profit margins? The thought seemed too good to be true. But the sincerity in Lewis's eyes told her this wasn't a fleeting offer. This was real. Her gaze drifted to the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set, casting a soft glow over the mountains. This was her moment. This was the chance she had been waiting for her entire life. Diana had always believed that healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. She had seen firsthand the toll that a broken system had taken on so many people. Now she had the opportunity to change that, to build something that would not just treat ailments, but heal a broken system. With a deep breath, Diana turned back to Lua. The weight of the decision still loomed large, but she knew that if she didn't take this leap now, she might never get another chance. I've always wanted to do something like this, she said, her voice steady despite the flood of emotions inside her. But I don't know if I'm ready. I've never done anything like this before. Louis smiled, his confidence unwavering. You're ready, Diana. You've been ready all along, and you won't be alone in this. We'll do this together. Diana hesitated for a moment longer, her mind racing with the possibilities, the challenges, and the uncertainties. But in the end, she knew what she had to do. This was her chance to make a real difference, to change the system that had held so many people back. She could be the one to create a new kind of healthcare, one where the focus was on people, not profits. With a final deep breath, Diana nodded. Let's do it, she said, her voice filled with determination. Let's build that clinic. And just like that, the dream she had carried with her for so long began to take shape. Diana sat alone in her cottage, the evening air cool and still, her mind swirling with doubt. The offer Louis Marchand had made to help her build a clinic where healthcare could be provided without the financial barriers that plagued the system was everything she had ever dreamed of. Yet as she stared at the contract in front of her, she felt a deep sense of hesitation. Her whole life had been dedicated to helping others, to giving everything she had to make a difference, no matter the cost. But now, faced with the responsibility of managing an entire clinic, her confidence wavered. She wasn't a businesswoman. She was a nurse trained to care for patients, not manage logistics, budgets, and teams of professionals. The weight of the decision was suffocating, and the enormity of it made her second-guess herself. Could she really do this? Could she build something from the ground up? Create a place where the core mission was to heal and help, without being constrained by money or profit? The thought of running the clinic was both exhilarating and terrifying. The idea of overseeing operations, managing finances, recruiting staff. Everything seemed like a daunting challenge she wasn't sure she was ready for. The more she thought about it, the more overwhelming it became. She had always known that the healthcare system was broken, but she had never imagined that she would have to carry the weight of changing it on her own. Diana wasn't sure if she was ready to step into a leadership role, to carry the responsibility of so many lives on her shoulders. What if she failed? What if the dream she had so desperately wanted turned out to be too much for her to handle? Feeling the weight of the decision pressing on her, Diana knew she needed guidance. She couldn't make this choice alone. The next day, she reached out to the people who had always been her rock. Her mother and her best friend, Lucy. Her mother had always been the practical one, the one who offered sound advice when the world seemed chaotic. Diana called her, and after a few moments of quiet conversation, she explained the offer from Louis, the potential for a new life, and her fears about stepping into this new role. Her mother listened carefully, and after a pause, her voice was calm but filled with conviction. Diana, she began, you've always had a heart for others. You've spent your life caring for people, helping them when they needed it most. This is just a bigger way of doing what you've always done. You've been given a chance that many people can only dream of. I know you're scared, but don't let fear hold you back. You have everything you need to make this work. You've always known what's right, what's important. Trust yourself. Diana took in her mother's words, but the doubts still lingered. She needed a second opinion, someone who understood her better than anyone else. Lucy, her childhood friend who had been her confidant through every high and low. When Diana explained the situation to Lucy, her friend's response was more cautious but equally insightful. "Dee, I get it. This is a huge decision. But think about this. How many times have we talked about fixing the broken system? About creating a place where people can get help without worrying about money? This is that chance. But you have to ask yourself, what do you really want? This could be the opportunity to build the kind of clinic you've always imagined. You've got the heart and the vision for it. But it won't be easy. You'll have to fight for what you believe in every single day. You'll have to face challenges, and there will be moments when you question whether you're doing the right thing, but that's what it takes. So the question is, are you ready to take on that fight?" Her words struck a chord with Diana. She had always known that change wouldn't come without effort, without sacrifice. But could she live with herself if she didn't try? Could she live with the regret of not seizing the opportunity to change the very system she had been working within all these years? As Diana sat in silence after the call with Lucy, she felt a sense of clarity begin to wash over her. Yes, it would be hard. Yes, there would be moments of doubt. But this was her chance to create something real, something meaningful. She had always wanted to make a difference, and now she had the tools, the resources, and the opportunity to do so. She didn't have to do it alone. She had a support system, a team ready to help her bring her vision to life. And most importantly, she had the heart to guide her through the challenges. The decision wasn't easy, but Diana knew what she had to do. With a deep breath, she picked up the pen, signed the contract, and set her course toward a new future. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it. She was ready to take the leap. Ready to turn her dream into a reality. Diana had always believed that helping others was the most important thing she could do. Now she had the chance to create a place where that could happen on a much larger scale. She wasn't just going to be a nurse anymore. She was going to be a force for change, a leader in a healthcare system that truly put people first. And with the support of her family, her friends, and the resources Louis Marchand had offered, she was ready to make that dream a reality. The weight of the decision had been bearing down on Diana for days. Each moment of doubt had made the path ahead seem more daunting, more uncertain. But after endless hours of reflection weighing her fears and desires, the time had come for her to make a choice. It wasn't just about her future, it was about the future of countless others, those who would benefit from a healthcare system driven by compassion, not profit. Sitting at her kitchen table, the contract in front of her, Diana's hand hovered over the pen. The dream she had nurtured for so long to create a clinic where money didn't dictate who received care was finally within reach. Yet with that dream came immense responsibility, and a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Could she really build something that would change the healthcare system? Could she balance her passion for helping others with the harsh realities of managing a business? As she sat there, the quiet hum of the evening settling around her, Diana thought back to the many patients she had treated over the years. The elderly, the children, the families who had been turned away because they couldn't afford treatment. She had watched them suffer, knowing that the system had failed them. Now with Louis's offer, she had the chance to be the one who changed it. She could build something that was built on empathy care, and most importantly, the idea that everyone deserved the right to health care, no matter their financial status. The support of her family and friends had been invaluable. Her mother's words had resonated deeply. "You've always known what's right. Trust yourself." And Lucy's reminder of why Diana had chosen this path in the first place had been the final push. It wasn't about the fear of failure. It was about the possibility of succeeding and doing what she had always dreamed of. This was her moment to make a real difference. Diana took a deep breath, her fingers finally gripping the pen. She signed the contract, sealing her commitment to a future she had always envisioned, but never thought would be hers. As the ink dried, a sense of clarity washed over her. The fear was still there, but it was now accompanied by something else: hope. Hope that with the resources Louis had promised, she could build a clinic that would heal people both physically and emotionally. This wasn't just a business venture. It was a chance to transform a flawed system and make healthcare accessible to those who needed it most. The challenges ahead would be significant, but Diana knew she was ready. She had spent her life learning how to care for people, and now she would learn how to lead to create a place that was more than just a medical facility. It would be a sanctuary for those in need. As she sat back in her chair looking out the window at the stars, Diana knew one thing for certain. She was no longer just a nurse. She was the heart of something greater, something that could change the world. The journey was just beginning, and with her unwavering determination and the support of those who believed in her, Diana was ready to take the leap. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, she was excited to face it. The decision to build the clinic had been the easy part. Now Diana found herself at the start of a much harder journey, one that would test her in ways she never imagined. For years, she had been a nurse devoted solely to caring for patients. She had never considered the complexities of running a business, the intricacies of managing staff, or the sheer scale of what it would take to bring her vision to life. Yet as the doors to the new clinic began to open, Diana faced the reality of balancing her passion for healthcare with the cold hard facts of operating a medical facility. Lewis's team had provided her with the resources she needed to make this happen. Architects, business strategists, financial advisors, and medical professionals all at her disposal. They were there to support her, to help guide her through the process. But despite the resources available, the burden of decision-making fell squarely on Diana's shoulders. Each decision, no matter how small, felt monumental. What kind of equipment would they need? How would they recruit the right doctors and nurses? How could they keep costs low while maintaining a high standard of care? In the beginning, it was overwhelming. Diana found herself waking up early, staying late, and constantly juggling the demands of running a business with the desire to keep the clinic's values at the forefront. She wasn't just managing a building. She was trying to create a space that would be a beacon of hope for people who had nowhere else to turn. But as much as she wanted to focus on the human side of healthcare, she quickly realized that the clinic couldn't function without a solid business foundation. It was a delicate balance between her passion and the financial realities of running a successful operation. Despite the challenges, Diana was determined. She had always been a fast learner, and with the help of Lewis's team, she began to gain the confidence she needed to manage the clinic's operations. Slowly, she learned the ropes: how to handle budgets, recruit the right staff, manage patient flow, and deal with the legalities of running a healthcare facility. It was a steep learning curve, but each small victory, each problem solved, made her feel more empowered. She was starting to see her dream take shape, not just in the walls of the clinic, but in the people who were beginning to trust it. As the clinic began to open its doors to more patients, Diana couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. It wasn't perfect, and the road ahead would still be filled with obstacles, but she had created a space that embodied her values, where patients came first and the focus was always on healing. The challenge of running the clinic was far from over, but Diana was no longer intimidated by the work ahead. She had faced her fears, learned from her mistakes, and now, with the support of her team and Lewis's unwavering belief in her, she was ready to continue building the clinic into the place she had always dreamed of. The journey wasn't easy, but every step she took, every decision she made, brought her closer to her ultimate goal: a healthcare system where compassion and care could truly thrive, free from the constraints of financial barriers, and that Diana knew was worth every challenge she faced. As the months passed, Diana's clinic began to flourish. What had started as a dream, a vision of a healthcare system that prioritized people over profits, was slowly becoming a reality. The once empty halls of the clinic were now filled with the hum of activity: patients walking in for treatments, doctors and nurses working together seamlessly, and the staff providing care and comfort with unwavering dedication. Every corner of the clinic radiated the compassion Diana had always hoped to offer. And with each passing day, she found herself growing more proud of what they had built. It wasn't just the growth of the clinic itself that brought Diana joy. It was the tangible impact they were having on the community. People who had once been turned away from other facilities because they couldn't afford treatment were now walking through the clinic's doors with hope in their eyes. Diana knew that what they had created wasn't just another medical facility. It was a sanctuary. A place where patients could receive care without judgment, without fear of being turned away. It was a place where the focus was on healing, not billing. As the clinic continued to expand, Diana felt a deep sense of fulfillment that went beyond professional success. The clinic had become a vital part of the community, and it was clear that it was making a difference in ways Diana had never imagined. Families who had previously struggled to get basic medical care were now able to access the treatments they needed. Children, the elderly, the uninsured, they all had a place to turn, and Diana felt immense pride knowing that she had made this possible. For the first time in her life, Diana felt like she had truly found her purpose. The long hours, the sleepless nights, and the countless challenges had all been worth it. She had created something that could change the lives of so many, and in doing so, she had found the fulfillment she had always sought. Every patient who walked in with a smile, every family who expressed their gratitude, reminded Diana that she had made the right decision. This wasn't just about running a business, it was about creating a legacy. As she walked through the clinic's halls, greeting patients and staff alike, Diana couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. From the uncertain days when she had first signed the contract to the present moment, she had built something remarkable. The clinic had gone from a small, humble initiative to a thriving healthcare facility that served people from all walks of life. And the best part, it was still true to its mission to provide care with dignity and respect, regardless of financial status. Diana knew there would still be challenges ahead. Running a healthcare facility, especially one as unconventional as hers, would never be without its hurdles. But as she looked around the clinic at the smiling faces of the patients and the hard-working staff, she knew she had created something lasting. She had not only built a successful clinic, she had created a community, one where people mattered more than anything else. This was her legacy. For Diana, the success of the clinic wasn't just measured in numbers or growth. It was measured in the lives they had touched and the difference they had made. And as she watched the clinic continue to thrive, she felt a deep sense of contentment, knowing that her dream had become something far greater than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about helping a few people. It was about changing the way healthcare could be. And in that, Diana had found the true fulfillment she had always sought. As Diana walked through the bustling halls of her clinic, a sense of deep fulfillment washed over her. The sound of busy doctors and nurses, the hum of patients speaking with receptionists, and the steady rhythm of care being provided, made it clear that what she had built was more than just a medical facility. It was a living, breathing testament to her vision, a space where compassion, care, and dignity took precedence over profit. The journey had been long and full of challenges. Diana often found herself looking back on the days when she first took the leap to create this place. She remembered the fear and uncertainty that accompanied her decision. Could she balance her passion for healthcare with the overwhelming responsibilities of managing a business? Was it possible to build something truly meaningful in a system that often prioritized financial gain over the well-being of patients? But now, as she stood in the heart of her clinic, those early doubts seemed like distant memories. The clinic was thriving, and it had become a beacon of hope for many. Families who had once been denied care for lack of insurance or funds were now welcomed with open arms. Patients no longer had to worry about how they would pay for a doctor's visit or whether they could afford the medications they needed. In this space, people were treated with respect and compassion, regardless of their financial situation. It was everything Diana had ever hoped for, a healthcare system where the human side of medicine was at the forefront. As she reflected on her journey, Diana realized that she had built more than just a business. The clinic was a legacy, a lasting symbol of the positive change she had made in the healthcare system. She had stayed true to her values, refusing to compromise on the belief that care should be a right, not a privilege. The clinic was proof that it was possible to provide quality healthcare while also fostering an environment of empathy and respect. It wasn't easy, and there were still obstacles ahead. Running the clinic was no simple task. There were always decisions to be made, challenges to overcome, and new hurdles to address. But despite the complexities, Diana knew she had built something important, something that would continue to impact the lives of people for years to come. The legacy she had created was not just about the clinic's success or its growing number of patients. It was about the culture of care that she had cultivated. Every smile from a grateful patient, every note of thanks from a family who had received the care they needed was a reminder of the deeper purpose behind her work. Diana had transformed a simple idea into something tangible, And in doing so, she had changed the lives of countless people who would otherwise have been overlooked by the traditional healthcare system. Diana could feel the weight of that legacy every time she looked around the clinic at the dedicated staff, the patients who trusted them, and the sense of community that had formed within the walls. This wasn't just a place where people came for treatment. It was a space where they felt seen, heard, and valued. That was the true measure of her success. She had stayed true to her vision, and now the clinic was living proof of what could be achieved when compassion was prioritized over profit. As she stood there watching the staff work with passion and care, Diana felt a deep sense of pride. She had built more than just a clinic. She had built a legacy that would continue to inspire others and provide care to those who needed it most. And in that moment, Diana knew that she had truly made a difference. The healthcare system might still have its flaws, but in her clinic, there was a place for everyone, a place where compassion truly made all the difference. Diana's journey is a powerful reminder that compassion, determination, and a willingness to take risks can lead to meaningful and lasting change. What began as a dream to provide healthcare without financial barriers has blossomed into a thriving clinic that serves as a beacon of hope for many. Diana's decision to take a leap of faith, despite the uncertainties and challenges she faced, has not only transformed her own life, but also made a profound impact on her community. Through her unwavering dedication, Diana created a place where patients are treated with dignity, regardless of their financial situation. She has shown that it is possible to build a successful healthcare model that prioritizes human care over profit. The clinic's success is not measured just by its growing patient numbers, but by the trust it has earned and the positive changes it has brought to countless lives. As the clinic thrives, Diana can look back with pride at the lasting impact she's made. Her commitment to her values, her ability to overcome obstacles, and her courage to follow her heart have all played a vital role in this success. In the end, Diana's journey proves that one person driven by passion and a desire to do good can truly create a legacy of change and inspire others to follow in her footsteps. Diana's journey teaches us the power of compassion and the importance of staying true to our values, even when faced with difficult decisions. It reminds us that meaningful change often requires taking risks and stepping out of our comfort zones. While the healthcare system, like many other industries, can be driven by profit, Diana's story shows that it is possible to create something that prioritizes people over numbers. She proved that with determination and a clear vision, we can build something impactful, whether it's a business, a community project, or even a personal endeavor. This story also highlights the importance of resilience in the face of adversity. Diana didn't give up when the odds were stacked against her, and in doing so, she created a legacy that will benefit many for years to come. For those of us in midlife or beyond, it's a powerful reminder that it's never too late to pursue a dream and make a real difference in the world. Sometimes the greatest rewards come from following our hearts and doing what we believe is right, regardless of the challenges we might face.